You read that title right. Even more techniques with clear embossing powder.
Hi everyone, my name is Brennan and welcome to
Brennan's Crafty Corner.
Hey everyone, my name is Brennan and welcome to my YouTube channel. A couple of weeks ago, I shared a video with clear embossing powder and doing a bunch of outside of the box techniques with it that you wouldn't normally do, and it did super well. You guys really liked it, and I asked, do you want a part 2? And the overwhelming answer was yes. So here I am, part 2. Today I'm sharing a couple more techniques that I really enjoy and that I think are super fun, would be amazing to add to your crafting arsenal. Also, I'm going to be building on one of the techniques I did in the first video, so if you haven't watched that, you might want to watch that first, or you could just go back to it. It doesn't really matter. Also, another note, if you're not following me on Instagram, I suggest you might want to do that because on Friday, December 20th, 2024, I'm going to be hosting a giveaway that's fairly large, so you just want to stay tuned for that because there's going to be a lot of prizes you can win. So without further ado, let's get into this video because I think you're going to really enjoy this technique.
And we are back with some more clear embossing powder techniques. The last video did so well, you guys absolutely loved it. I'm so happy that you did because it was really fun to make. So we're going back and we're doing some more because I had a lot more ideas to share, so we're going to do that in this video. First up, I have this ornament here, Jingle Jewels Effortless Artistry Paper from Crafty Meraki. Essentially, it's a pre-colored image that's on a sheet of paper. There's a die that can cut it out, and there's a stamp that goes with it, but think of it like ephemera. So this technique is just to put some clear embossing powder over any piece of ephemera, or you could do this on a stamped and colored image as well. So what we're going to do here is so simple. I have my clear embossing ink here, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little piece of ephemera, this little ornament, and I'm just going to dip it, and I'm going to press. I want to make sure this gets coated nice and evenly in some ink, so I'm just going to leave it on there for a while. Okay, I think we should be good, and we can check to see if there's a lot of shine on there. And I do see a bunch of shine. So now I'm just going to put this over my coffee filter, and I'm going to dump all the powder on it. If you don't like the feeling of embossing powder, I would suggest using some tweezers here, but I personally don't mind it. Now we're just going to dump and tap on the side there. So now, as you can see, there's a bunch of powder on that ornament, and we can just dump all that excess powder back into the jar from that coffee filter because the coffee filter is flexible and makes it really easy to pour it into the jar. And now all I'm going to do is I'm just going to heat this up with my heat gun. I'm going to do this off camera though, so you don't have to hear the heat gun because most people do not want to hear that sound. So I heated up all that powder, and as you can see, there's a little bit extra gloss and shine to this ornament now. And as you can also see, there's a little bit of texture that sometimes happens with embossing powder, especially if you're heating it on top rather from the back, just because some of the powder can get blown away and it might not be the best coverage. So what I would suggest doing if you don't like that texture is just going in a second time, inking up the ornament again, and pouring that embossing powder over, because that will help get rid of the texture. This technique can also be used in so many other ways. It doesn't have to just be ephemera, so we're going to get into that right now too. Another example here is what I did on this card. Now, for clarification, this card is not my favorite. It's old. It'll probably never get sent out. But what I do like about it is specifically this ornament and this ornament. I don't like that ornament and I messed it up. But anyways, I just put clear embossing powder over all of it. So it's a bunch of different layers of cardstock. But that didn't matter. You still get that really cool shine effect. I just personally don't like this card because of the composition, but what I do like is the individual ornaments on their own. And just look at that shine. And another way is with sentiment dies. So right here, I have a hello die cut that I've made using some hello dies and the shadow die from Pink Fresh. And I'm going to do the exact same thing as I did with the ornament. So I have my embossing ink pad here, and once more, we're just gonna get this all nice and coated up with embossing ink. Make sure there's ink everywhere. It's even more imperative that you use more pressure here, just since there's multiple layers of paper. So we want to make sure it all gets nice and inky. And we can check that we got that done by just looking, seeing that everything is shiny there, which it is. So now we can go in and apply our clear embossing powder. So this time I'm just going to dump it all over in the coffee filter. And you know what? I don't want to get my hands all dirty this time with embossing powder, so I'm just gonna try and pick this up with reverse. Nope. Okay. You know what? I'm gonna use my fingers. we're gonna do a combination. You know what? There we go. Hold struggle is real, people. Struggle is real. We're almost there. Okay. There we go. Okay. And just tap any of that excess off. And there we go. See all that powder on there? Looking really promising. So now once more, I'm just gonna heat this up off camera. And once again, just look at all that shine on there. It almost looks like you put glossy accents on there. I personally don't have glossy accents, so this is a really good technique to replace glossy accents if you don't have them, or maybe you're out or something like that. But it's just such a cool effect. And I feel like it would also take a long time to do glossy accents over all this. But yeah, it's just a really, really cool way to level up your sentiments or any ephemera or any stamped image you colored, anything like that. Literally anything. Just to show that this technique could be used on quite literally anything, pattern paper time. This is just, once again, a really cool way to add even more interest to a project, and it turns your pattern paper into specialty paper by adding that glossy layer. Also, Marian Emberson, the queen of embossing powder herself, would definitely suggest you use a brayer for this technique, but as I've told her, my brayer is an absolute hot mess and I don't think it would go over well. But when you're applying embossing ink to a large piece of paper or any large surface that's flat and even, Marian Emberson, who is definitely a pro in embossing powder, if I do say so myself, would suggest that you use a brayer. And actually, it does work really, really well when I've done that because it just helps you get the ink down a lot faster. But like I said, my brayer is a mess. So I've done that on large pieces of paper before. But, in this scenario, I'm not going to because, kind of can't. So as we can see, that's all shiny and ready to go for some embossing powder. So I'm just going to throw my clear embossing powder down over this pattern paper. And we're just going to tap any excess off, but I think I got the most of it. So now we're just going to heat this up like we've been doing. And there we go. Look at that shine on this pattern paper now. We basically just created our own little strip of specialty cardstock out of some normal pattern paper with just a little bit of embossing powder to make it glossy. Once again, if you don't like that little texture up there, just do another layer of heat embossing and it will get rid of most of it. And if you still don't like how it's looking, do a third layer. And the last really great technique that might honestly be the best thing you can do with just coating paper or coating different things in clear embossing powder to give it a whole nother look is using some glitter paper. Now, I don't have any glitter paper on hand that sheds, so I'm not going to be a really good example of this and can't demonstrate it, but I still want to say it to put the idea in your head because a lot of glitter paper sheds. Not all of it, there's some amazing ones out there that don't shed, but there's definitely glitter paper that sheds. So if you want to mail a card, but you don't want that glitter shedding, another great idea would just be to coat it in some clear embossing ink, and then going in with some clear embossing powder, and then bam, that glitter paper is not going to be shedding anymore. And like I said before with that Marian Emberson suggestion, I would say you would want to use your brayer there just so you don't transfer glitter onto your ink pad because that could lead to a whole world of problems that you don't want to deal with. But yeah, just covering glitter paper that sheds in some clear embossing powder and ink would be another amazing idea and technique to do with it. So now I have this background that I made in the first part of this video, or the first edition of this video. And as you can see, it's kind of like a watercolor background, but kind of not. And there's some shimmer there, and it's an emboss resist with that clear embossing powder. So I used some Nuvo shimmer powder, so that's why there's that little bit of shimmer. That's why it's watercolor. So once more, we're gonna take our Wow embossing ink pad. We're actually gonna just go over this and get this entire piece of paper coated. We're going to be doing a similar technique to what we've been doing, but just over some emboss resist that we've already done to add a little bit more interest to this card background. And once again, you should probably use a brayer for this because of all the shimmer, but do as I say, not as I do, because my brayer will not be seeing the light of day. Sorry. So as you can see now, there's all that gloss all over this panel, which means it is fully covered in ink and ready to emboss. We're just going to coat this entire panel. So now we have that powder all over this panel, so it is time to heat it up. Once again, I'm not going to subject you to the noise of this heat gun, so I'll be right back. So our heat embossing is done, and now just look at all that gloss. So when you're looking at the panel more direct, you can kind of still see some of the shimmer originally from the Nuvo shimmer powder, such as up here and up here, but when you tilt it into the light, you get that more glossy look, and it just looks so cool. This now kind of feels like one flat surface. You can still feel the dots raised a little bit, but this just levels up this background so much. And you could do it honestly on any of the ones we made in the last video. Okay, maybe not this one because it might not look the best on this tone-on-tone one, but if you do it on any of these other three or just do similar backgrounds to these and make your own, it would look so cool to get that extra gloss on here. This is just, I love it how this came out. So for my last technique with the clear embossing powder, I'm actually going to be combining it with some paste. And you'll see how I'm doing this in a second. The only stipulation with this, it has to be a paste that can be heat set. Lunar paste can be heat set, so that's why I've chosen it. But you can use any other paste as long as it can be heat set. So off camera, I used a little bit of Clear Skies Lunar Paste and applied it through a heart stencil from Vicky Booten. As you probably know, Lunar Paste has a really shiny but also kind of matte look. It's not glossy by any means, it's just really shiny, but if you want a glossy look, all you have to do is add some clear embossing powder. You want to make sure you do this while it's still wet so it actually sticks to it, but otherwise, you're all good. So we're just going to pour this right on. So with my clear embossing powder all over there, I can heat set this now. It kind of looks like those sour candies that have the coating on them. That's what it's kind of looking like. This is why it's important though that the paste you're using can be heat set because we need to melt that embossing powder. I wanted to show you the heat embossing process for this one because the paste is going to bubble up as you add the heat because we're going to be holding the heat gun in one spot for a while, so that causes the bubbling up, and the embossing powder holds those bubbles in place. You can squish them back down, and if you move your heat gun fast, you won't get the bubbles, but I think it gives a really cool effect. It's kind of like puffy paint. So this is now heat set, and yeah, I think that's just another really cool look, and it gives the paste a totally different look, makes it a little bit more puffy, and it gives it a little bit more gloss to that shine.
Okay, I asked this at the end of my first video, so I'm gonna ask it again. Which was your favorite technique in this video? For me, I think it was adding the clear embossing powder to the hello die cut sentiment. It's just like the perfect touch. It makes it look really elegant, really classy, and it just has like the perfect shine and will look really cool in a card. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy it, I really hope you consider hitting the subscribe and like button because it helps even more people see this video, and it helps you see more of my videos because it puts it in the algorithm. Thank you so much for watching, and have an amazing rest of your day. Bye everyone, and happy crafting!